the time to do it. Okie dokie. So welcome again. Thank you for being interested in the topic and thank you for showing up today. I'm since a while in education, and education is about breathing, about how to recognize functional and dysfunctional breathing patterns. And it is education which is based on yoga pranayama, which is a breath practice used in the yoga practices, in combination backed up by modern science. So it's not just that I learn from old text from the Yoga Sutras or from teachers telling me this is how we do it, but I'm kind of comparing breathing patterns, pranayama practices with modern science to get really like a knowledge which is backed up from both sides and not only based on old translations from the yoga philosophy. Uh, on this journey, I really discovered a lot about my own breathing. I really helped myself a lot in terms of stress level and yeah, in terms of my stress level. I helped myself on a physical level a lot, also mentally. It really like helped me, and now I'm coming slowly to this timing where I want to share. And I this class is really about exploration. It's I will teach, obviously I will share, I will teach something, but I'm teaching it so that you can explore and be like a little scientist, and maybe it will spark in you questions or at least the motivation to observe your breath more regularly, because it gave me a lot of insights about my health, about my mental health, about my physical health, and it really changed my life. And I'm very passionate from the beginning about the topic breathing. And this is my first official class, so thank you for being here, so that I can share with you. I just like to clear things out. This is not a class where I'm sharing breathing techniques. I'm sharing breathing patterns, though two of the patterns is actually like a technique, but I will mention that to you when we come to that moment, when I shared with you. Let's see. Yes, I shared already. If I will ask, after I explain every technique, I will ask that you understood the technique. Then you can give me a hands up. If you prefer to keep the camera off, that's fine as well. Then I just hope you're understanding the breathing technique. Um, I will introduce 6 different patterns with you, and I will name them. Then we're going to lie down, or you can stay seated if you like. And I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to practice this breathing technique and explore it in your own body so that you can feel it and make like mental notes. And I will tell you what to watch out for, because sometimes when we're feeling, it's not really clear what we're looking for. So I will give you some clues maybe to observe something in your body, and then you can make afterwards, when the technique is finished after 2 minutes, you can sit down and write your notes down if you want to, or if you had something which you would like to share or ask about at the end of the class. And then we move to the next breathing practice. To mention in the beginning, all of the breathing patterns we're gonna explore with nose breathing. So it's about nose breathing. It's about making the breath quiet. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be different. It does. So it's not that I have to hear it or something. It's not that you even have to hear it. It has to be just a regular breath through the nose, in and out. Yeah. So I will explain at the end of the class why, but this is like how we want to do it today, just for the purpose of this experiment. And yes, I think this is all what I have to share in the beginning. Like I said, I will be guiding you with my voice. There's no need to, I'm gonna just mute everybody here right now. Let me see. Uh, Unmute, not me. I muted myself. Mute, mute, script. All right. Hi, Aisha. Um, right. Yes. So let me see. Do I have everything? Yes. So you don't have to see me, but in between you can look at me, and then in case I can show. Oh, Gina, yes. If you unmute yourself.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Um, is there a better position? Because I think I missed if it's because you can lie down or sit up.
Yes.
Is
You
one that's more I mean, I don't know if it's beneficial, but
if you're lying down, it's more relaxing. If you're sitting, it might be like sometimes hard depending on what you're sitting. I mean, I would prefer that you sit, if you sit, that you sit on a chair, that your spine is straight. But I feel lying down gives you more of a feedback um, in terms of how your posture is. So, but I have also somebody here or people who have something with their backs and it doesn't feel so good to lie for a long time. So in this case, I would say have a chair ready to just switch positions. So you don't have to do even like, or maybe after 2, 3 breathing patterns, you feel like, oh, I want to sit now. Then you can do that. Yeah.
okay.
So sitting is fine too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are we ready? Let's begin. First of all, just have a quick look. For all of the breathing practices, we're gonna have one hand on the chest and one hand on the bottom of your rib cage. So if you touch your rib cage, this is like the rib cage here on the bottom, and it's about the rounding here, where the rounding is about that spot. This is where we want to have the hands, like one hand here, one hand here. There will be certain practices where I will tell you to move this top hand somewhere else, maybe like on the bottom or here. But in general, it's about keeping the hands here. You don't have to keep them the whole time there. The hands are here to help you to feel. As soon as you know, like, okay, I know exactly that I feel it under this hand or I feel it under this hand, you can just relaxingly put the hands on the side. But in the beginning, it's just nice to feel in that way so that the helps are helping you with sensations. Okay. Yes. So the first breathing practice, the first breathing pattern which we're going to explore is chest breathing. And generally, for all of the breathing patterns we're going to go through, I want you to observe, and I will give you always a timer for 2 minutes. And I want you to observe, how is this breath pattern for you? Is it comfortable? Is it discomfortable? Is it familiar in the sense, oh, I know this breathing pattern. This breathing pattern, this is like my breathing pattern, so it feels very familiar to you, or like completely not familiar to you. Did it aggregate your state of mind, or did it relax you? Did it feel like you're suffocating, or does it feel like it was comfortable and relaxing? And maybe your body gets more warm or cooler while you're doing the breath practice, or maybe your heart rate. The heart rate is sometimes I actually need always to hold my pulse to feel my heart rate, but some people can hear their heart pretty strongly. So if you feel your heart rate, like notice, is your heart rate going up or going down or stays the same? Just like in the sense, these are like the parameters to look out for if you don't know what to observe. Or maybe you're going to have a completely different observation. You can just write everything down, what comes up for you. All right, so get a comfortable position. When you're lying, keep the legs bent, and then bring your attention for a moment to your breath. The legs are bent when you're lying. When you're sitting, make sure that your spine is straight and that your head is like leveled on your sit bones, over your sit bones, that you're not like leaning back or leaning forward. Have one hand on the chest and one hand on the bottom of your rib cage. And then if you are breathing right now through your mouth, switch to nose breathing. Switch to nose breathing. So we're breathing in and out through the nose. And just observe under your hands which hand is moving, which hand is not moving. Are both hands moving? Just observe like a scientist for a moment. In a moment, we're gonna breathe on a certain count, and the count is gonna be inhale 1, 2, 3, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 second longer for the exhalation. And as the word says, it's called chest breathing. We're gonna focus that right now that the breath goes into our chest. So our lower hand should be passive and the top hand should move. So you're allowing the inhalation. Rise your top hand, inhale 2, 3, and then exhale, the chest deflates 1, 2, 3, 4. So just keep in mind that count of 1, 2, 3 on an inhalation and 1, 2, 3 on an exhalation. Try to pacify the bottom hand totally. So let the breath only go in towards your top hand. I'm gonna put a timer on in a moment for 2 minutes. And if you know already that your lower hand is passive, then just let the hands rest on the floor or when you're sitting on your thighs and just observe. How is the breath moving? Which body parts are actually moving? I mean, obviously, we're breathing into our chest, but is there anything else which gets moved through the breath going in and out into our chest? So I'm starting the 2 minutes now, and you focus on your chest in your own time, inhaling on 3 counts and exhaling on 4 counts. Observe your state of mind. Observe if that breathing pattern feels comfortable to you or rather discomfortable. What is moving with the breath? Your chest? Anything else moving as well? Just observe. When your mind drifts off, just place your hand back on the chest and bring your attention back so that your hand is rising on the inhalation and falling on the exhalation. Just be curious and observe. We have 15 seconds more. And slowly stop your observation. Roll over to the side, come up to sitting. If you have anything to write down what you notice, do so. If you don't have anything to write down, you can stay just lying if that feels good to you. But if you've noticed anything, write it down. It might be helpful to you later to ask questions if you feel like it. I'm giving a moment for you to write things down. And while other people are writing and you don't have anything to write, or you just make a mental note, you can continue breathing into your chest and feeling if it was not so clear. Sometimes, the first breathing pattern is always more difficult because we have to start focusing on the body, and our mind might be still active, so it's a bit difficult. So towards the end of our session, it's going to be easier. I'm just going to give a minute more. So finish slowly, and then you can take your place back into lying or sitting. And we will explore in a moment the second breathing pattern. All right, the next breathing pattern we're going to explore together is belly breathing. So the word already says it, it's breathing into our bellies. And we're gonna take again one hand on the chest, one hand on the bottom of our rib cage. And we tried now to pacify the top hand, right? So notice how you're breathing right now. You were breathing now for a couple of minutes into your chest. So we're switching now to the belly. And just help yourself with your hands to feel so that you can guide your breath now into the belly. If you managed to guide your breath into the belly, you can take the top hand down. But if it's not so clear, or if you want to keep the top hand, you're welcome to keep it if you're comfortable. As you inhale, focus on the expansion of your belly. Let it inflate on your inhalation, and we're keeping the same pattern of 3 counts in and 4 counts out. On the exhale, allow your belly to relax and deflate again. So there's no activity needed for the belly breathing. You just let the belly expand on an inhalation, 1, 2, 3, and exhalation, deflate, 1, 2, 3, 4. I will start now our timer. And for the next 2 minutes, observe belly breathing. How does it feel to you breathing into your belly? Maybe you can compare it already with the first breathing pattern into the chest. Do you notice something different? Notice your heart rate, body temperature. What is moving with the breath? Obviously, we're moving our belly, but there might be other areas in the body also involved. See if you can be sensible enough to notice that. If your mind drifts off, bring it back to the sensations on the bottom hand on your belly. The breath flows through the nose, gentle, slow, no rush. Inflating on the inhalation and pacifying on the exhalation. You have 10 seconds more to explore. You're welcome to explore longer while others are writing. And then slowly return back to your natural breath. Maybe that was your natural breath. And if you want to write down something, what you noticed, that is the time now to do so. Was this breathing pattern comfortable, discomfortable? What did you notice? What was different in comparison to the first one? Okay, I'm gonna give 1 more minute so that you can finish your writing. And then we move on to the third breathing pattern. Okay, so slowly bring your writing to the end. Take again your comfortable position, lying or sitting. And again, we're going to place our hand, one on the chest and the other one on the bottom of the rib cage. The next breathing pattern we're going to explore, it's called paradoxical breathing. A little bit more to this breathing pattern is some of you might find that rather challenging to do this breathing pattern. In this breathing pattern, we will reverse the movement of the belly and chest, which means that on the inhalation, we're going to draw the belly in. And on the exhalation, we're going to expand the belly. So opposite what we did before. Yeah, also with the chest. So when you're breathing, you basically on the inhalation, drawing in the chest, drawing in the belly. And on the exhalation, you're expanding everything. If this pattern is difficult for you, doesn't feel good, or you get lost, you can, of course, find back to it. It's just 2 minutes, or you can just rest and just drop that pattern. We're going to explore it together, but I just wanted to mention that if it's difficult, if it somehow doesn't feel good, then you can just rest and use that for, gathering your thoughts, what felt funny. So if you stop the practice earlier than 2 minutes, you just use it for making mental notes. And we're starting now our 2 minutes. So keep the hand on the belly and on the chest. We keep an account of 3 this time, so you don't have to make the exhalation 1 count longer. On an inhalation, we're drawing everything in, like you're drawing the air in. On an exhalation, we're expanding. Inhale for 3 counts, 1, 2, 3. Exhale on 3 counts, 1, 2, 3. And notice. So on an inhalation, I saw just somebody lifted the hand. You continue breathing. On an inhalation, we drawing the belly in. On an exhalation, we pushing. Actually, we don't push, we let the belly expand on the exhalation. So it's a reverse breathing pattern to what we did before. It's a breathing pattern. If it doesn't feel good, if you're getting mixed up, just you can also pause. We have just 30 seconds more to explore this breathing pattern. Inhalation, drawing in the air. Exhalation, letting the muscles loose, expanding the muscles of the chest and the belly. Notice how your mind feels. Notice how the belly, like the body feels. What is different to the other breathing patterns we explored before. 5 seconds more. And then everyone who explored to the end can now take notes, and we have a minute for taking notes. Okay, half minute more for your notes, and then we're going to move to the fourth breathing pattern, which is actually a yoga breathing practice pattern. Okay, finish your writing and bring yourself back into your comfortable position. The next breathing pattern and breath practice is the full yoga breath. It's called also Dirya Pranayama or bucket breathing. And we're gonna use again for the inhalation 3 counts and the exhalation 3 counts. So you don't have to make the exhalation longer. It just stays 3-3. One hand is again on the chest and the other one on the bottom of your rib cage. And we're going back so that on the inhalation this time, as you inhale, allow your breath to expand your chest first and then flow down and expand your abdomen. So we inhaling, expanding the chest, expanding the belly. And then on an exhalation, we gently engage our abdominal muscles and drawing them inward to support a full, complete release of the air. Starting from the bottom, moving upwards. I'm going to repeat that, don't worry. So on an inhalation, we bring the air in first into the chest, down into the belly on 3 counts. And then on an exhalation, we're drawing the muscles and releasing the air from the bottom, from the belly upwards. Yeah, so it goes in, like imagine from the mouth down to the belly, from the belly up, back through the mouth, even though we're breathing through the nose, but just from the direction. Yeah, if you're imagining. So we're inhaling, expanding the chest, expanding the belly. We exhaling, drawing the belly in and bringing the air up and away back through our nose. I'm going to set now the timer and we're starting with the complete yoga breath. Inhale, drawing the air into the chest, into the belly. Exhalation, drawing the muscles to exhale from the belly upwards into the chest, through the nose out again. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Keep the breath through the nose, slow, gentle, don't rush. Keep the inhale and exhale, same amount, 3 seconds or 3 counts. Allowing the chest and belly to expand on the inhalation and draw in on an exhalation. And notice, how does it feel to breathe that way compared to the other ones we did already? Does it feel familiar or less familiar? How does your mind feel? Do you feel any change in body temperature? How is your heart rate? Just observe and be curious. You have 20 seconds more to explore. Inhale on 3, expanding chest and belly. Exhale, drawing the muscles of the belly gently in to exhale the breath out from the bottom to the top. One more breath, and then we take again a minute to write notes down if you have. Okay, take a moment to write down if you have something to write down. Return back to your regular breath if that what we just did was not your regular breath. And give yourself a moment to make some mental notes or some notes on paper If you need to change positions, we have 2 more breathing patterns to explore. Half minute more. Chip, you're welcome to sit for the last 2 if you want. Yeah. Or like walk around or do something in between. All right, finish off your notes. And we're going to explore the next breath pattern. And the next breath pattern is called subtle breathing. It is more of a practice in this case. It's like the complete yoga breath, which we did before, was also more of a practice than a breath pattern. So the subtle breathing is also more of a practice than a breath pattern. So what it means is we don't do this breathing 24/7. It's more like something which you say, okay, I'm going to do this practice now for 5 to 10 minutes. The same like with the yoga breath, which is usually used for a yoga class, but not necessarily during the day 24/7. We're going to start this time with both of our hands on the bottom of the rib cage. So one hand on the right, the other one on the left. So as the hand position already indicates, we want to get the breath this time into our diaphragmatic area, which is the rib cage and the belly area. And we're breathing in and out through the nose as before. We breathe soft and silent and no audible sound. We want to breathe in our diaphragmatic area, like I mentioned. And what it means is that on the inhalation, like just see if you can find that. So the heel of our hands should lie now on the sides of our rib cage, depending, of course, on the size of your hands. And the fingers, they don't have to touch in the middle. They can be a little bit open. So you can adjust your finger position like that. But the heel of our hand is on the sides of our rib cage right now. And I want you on the inhalation to breathe into the heel of your hand, which means the rib cage is expanding sideways, so horizontally on an inhalation. And then on the exhalation, we drawing the rib cage back and in. If this is rather unfamiliar or it doesn't come so easily, just try your best without creating any tension. The only thing, just keep in mind that we want to breathe lateral. So inhale, expanding sideways, exhale, drawing inwards. The breathing is very, very gentle. And we're focusing on the inhalation on a soft lateral flare of our rib cage. And on the exhalation, there's a gentle inward contraction of the rib cage. So soft lateral flare to the sides on an inhalation, and on an exhalation, a gentle inward contraction. The count for this breathing is again that the exhalation is 1 second longer. So it's inhale, flaring the ribs out, 1, 2, 3, and an exhale, gently inward contraction, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so this is the count for the breathing. I will give more instruction in a moment before I hit the timer. What we want to do on a subtle breathing is gradually lighten our breath, making it so subtle that it becomes almost invisible. Imagine you're inhaling space rather than air, and constantly soften your exhalation. Donald, maybe sit on the barrel against the wall. Aim to reach a little air hunger where you feel the desire to breathe more, but you're not desperate for air. So find like a fine tune where you're creating a little slight air hunger. So the breath is very gentle. What I try sometimes to imagine is that I'm playing with some children and I'm hiding and I don't even want them to hear my breath so that they can't find me. So you want to make that breath really nearly invisible. And we're going to start the timer right now. Avoid pushing yourself into gasping. Try to stay focused, really like making the inhalation almost invisible and also the exhalation nearly invisible. Drop a little bit below the level of pure comfort. So there should be at one point a little bit like a air hunger happening. So you're breathing very, very light. Keeping in mind the count. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. The word is subtle, subtle breathing. Every breath requires attention when we want to slow down the breath. Gradually lighten more and more your breath. Imagine you're inhaling space rather than air. And constantly soften your exhalation. We have 20 seconds more. Explore how it makes you feel. What are you noticing? All right, and now slowly return back to your regular breath. If this was not your regular breath, and I give you some time to write down notes. What did you notice? What was different? Was it challenging? Was it easy? Did you notice how was your comfort level? Did you feel relaxed? Did you feel agitated? Did you feel suffocated because of the reduced practice? All right, I see like some people still writing, so take maybe 20 seconds more. We have one more breath practice. One more breathing pattern to discover. All right. Good. For those who are already ready, you can watch for a moment. We're gonna in the beginning have again one hand on the chest, the other one on the bottom of the rib cage. After a while, when we establish the connection to our diaphragmatic breath, which is happening here, I will ask you to move the top hand towards your lower belly, between your pubis and your navel. Yeah, so my navel is here, my pubis is here, so it's gonna be here. But we're gonna start with the hand on the chest and one on the bottom of the rib cage. All right, our next and last breathing pattern is called core breathing. Again, we're gonna breathe through the nose, in and out, keeping the breath soft and silent, no audible sound. And then observe with your attention how this breathing pattern feels to you. Let's first of all bring the attention into our hands and let's pacify completely the top hand so that the breathing is again happening in our diaphragmatic area, which means a soft flare outwards into the heel of the hands and a drawing in on an exhalation where the hands coming again a little bit closer to each other. Sometimes for some of us, it's hard to get the breath down from our chest into our rib cage. You do your best without creating any tension. As soon as you feel, yes, my top hand is passive, you can bring your top hand on the place on your lower belly, which is between the pubic bone and your belly button. So just there. Continue breathing through the nose, soft and silent. And stay conscious if you are relaxed in your shoulders, in your neck, in your chest, and that there's no tension, that you stay in your belly. Good. Now, on the inhalation, we expanding the rib cage laterally again, like in the subtle breathing before. And on an exhalation, I want you to begin to recruit your abdominal muscles by tightening the abdominals from the pubic bone to the navel. So it's a little bit like a jeans, like you have a jeans which got too tight and you're trying to zip the zipper up on an exhalation. And at the end, you also want to get that button to close. And not only this, imagine you have above that, you have still like a little corset on. And then after you closed your jeans, you also want to tighten that corset. So let's try that before I put the timer on. On an inhalation, we expand the rib cage laterally to the sides. Also, our belly will rise a little bit. And then on an exhalation, from the pubic bone, we tightening the muscles upwards, closing our jeans. And then we drawing the rib cage from the outside inwards to close our rib cage. We have again the 3-4 count. So exhalation, 1 count longer. Now, sometimes this breathing pattern is not so natural to us. And then we start creating like tensions and or become louder in our breathing. Really make sure that when you're engaging your belly for this breathing pattern, that you're not creating any tension or that the breath gets louder suddenly. Keep it so soft, slow, without any audible sound. Inhale on 3 and exhale, drawing the muscles up from the pubic bone towards the belly and the rib cage in on an exhalation on 4. And I'm going to start the timer now. You can also take now a yoga block or a pillow in between your inner thighs. If it's hard for you to engage your stomach muscles without creating tension, you can put something in between your inner thighs and squeeze it gently so that it's going to help you to engage the muscles from the pubis upwards. And we'll just wait for a moment until everybody is back in its position. And we're starting now. Gently through the nose, in and out, passive chest, passive shoulders, passive neck. On an inhalation, we expand lateral the rib cage and the belly expands a little bit too. On an exhalation, we drawing the muscles from the pubis upwards and then inwards on the top where our rib cage is. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Create a feeling as if you're hugging your spine around the entire surface, the full 360 degrees of the waist. So each time on an exhalation, You imagine that you're zipping up a tight pair of jeans and a corset. And we're breathing in and out through the nose. We have 30 seconds more. See that you keep your neck, shoulders, chest relaxed while you're engaging your abdominal muscles to help with the exhalation. Take 3 more breaths like that. Keeping the chest passive. Good. And then return back to your regular breath. If you have something to write down, if you observed something, noticed something, write it down. That was our last breathing pattern. Okay. So while you're still writing, I'm just gonna wait a half minute more. I was thinking that I will start sharing the notes to every breathing pattern, so you hear something about it, if it's considered a functional or dysfunctional breathing pattern, and then you can compare that what I'm sharing with you with your notes. So we started with chest breathing, where we were breathing in and out into our chest. So we were inflating and deflating our chest. And my notes to chest breathing from my education and from a scientific point of view is chest breathing is a common breathing pattern disorder, which often is accompanies with mouth breathing and or hyperventilation. Chest breathing involves the upper chest and accessory muscles. Accessory muscles are the muscles here around the neck, our trapeze, in the front, our pecs. So these are the muscles which are recruited when we chest breathing. This pattern can activate the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system means, so we have the autonomic nervous system, and it can go into rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic. And the sympathetic is on the opposite side, which is the fight or flight. So this pattern can activate the sympathetic nervous system, increasing stress and anxiety. With chest breathing, the accessory muscles, in particular all these muscles which I mentioned already, the trapeze, the front here, the shoulder area, they get recruited to do this pumping action of the breath. And those muscles become basically the primary breathing muscles, which they are not, because our diaphragm, which is sitting more down here, is actually our primary breathing muscles. So that was what I wrote down to chest breathing. So keep that in mind. And then belly breathing, on the other hand. So on the belly breathing, we were breathing on an inhalation, expanding the belly. And on the exhalation, we were just letting the belly deflate, right? On an exhalation, belly breathing. So belly breathing is a breath pattern often used in yoga circles, but also to calm people down, as it's a way to relax tension and induce a state of calm. This method, like belly breathing, is very helpful, but only short term to initiate, so that we're going into the parasympathetic nervous system. So the rest and digest, the relaxation, falling asleep, those kind of situations. However, on a long term, it's also a dysfunctional breathing pattern because in belly breathing, our belly expands on the inhalation. On an exhalation, it is deflating naturally without it re-recruiting the muscles. So the muscles get kind of expand and then they don't get drawn in. They're just like it deflates by itself, right? So it's just like inhaling into the belly and then we exhale and the belly draws a little bit in, but not really much. So if you maybe think about right now the core breathing, how we were recruiting the muscles to press to squeeze the air out. So after a while, if we breathe only into the belly or mainly into the belly, those muscles of our belly get kind of slack and loose. And that doesn't provide appropriate amount of resistance to ensure good diaphragmatic movement. So just quickly, like if you see me right now, the diaphragm is down here and it makes a movement like a jellyfish. So for that movement, it requires also our muscles so that it can go up into a dome to kind of go into its resting position. So it goes out on an inhalation and it draws in on an exhalation into a dome to get the breath more out. And that movement is not to its fullest potential when the belly is slack, if it doesn't uses those muscles to help. And that's why on a long run, it's also considered a dysfunctional breathing pattern. But to relax someone quickly, it's a really good tool. And also, if somebody breathes a lot into the belly only, it forces also the accessory muscles to kick in as well. And that means that we also tightening up in the shoulders and the neck and in this area as well, because it requires some muscles to help with that work, right? So that was about belly breathing. Then the next one was paradoxical breathing. So I'm curious what you were thinking about that. So paradoxical breathing is the breathing pattern where we kind of reverse the movement of the belly and the chest. So on an inhalation, instead of expanding, it was drawing in. On an exhalation, it was pressing out, right? So directly the opposite from what we did before. And paradoxical breathing can be considered a type of trauma breathing. So think about like if you would walk somewhere and somebody would like in a little alley and somebody would scare you, like jump into that alley and do like boo. Then in that moment, sometimes when we get scared, it's like we like pulling the air in and then tightening our belly because we get scared. So it's like a mechanism. So paradoxical breathing can happen to people who went through a trauma, for example, who got scared and then they got stuck into this breathing pattern where just the normal movement of the belly or the chest is kind of reverse. So and the movement of the diaphragm, what I explained also with that jellyfish breathing, is also kind of reversed then, because instead of expanding on an inhalation, it actually contracts on an inhalation. And then instead of like going into the relaxed position up on the exhalation, it actually has to expand. So it's very dysfunctional breathing pattern. And yeah, and has really long-term implications on our mind, on our nervous system, on our respiratory body mechanics. So I always like, I'm very alert. I mean, I was myself a paradoxical breather. I noticed it through my breathing education. I had like several dysfunctional patterns going on. And so it's very, very helpful to notice something and to change it. And we can change breathing patterns. It's not that when we have a breathing pattern, we can't change it. We can change it. I changed mine. So paradoxical breathing, also dysfunctional breathing pattern. Then we had the full yoga breath, which was on 3 counts in, 3 counts out. We were breathing in to the chest and down into the belly, expanding, and then on an exhalation we were drawing from the belly upwards and letting the breath go out again. This breathing pattern is mentioned, so that's the thing, like with yoga pranayamas are kind of taken on from very old texts, philosophical texts, and then they are translated, and then those translated got taught to a teacher, and one teacher was giving the knowledge to another teacher. So they are different. Sometimes they are not the same instructions for the same pranayama practice. So this pranayama practice, which I taught today, is taught in a different ways in different yoga schools. So sometimes it's like we did it today, through the nose in and out, and you breathe into the chest, you breathe into the belly, and you breathe out from the belly into the chest quietly. Then in some other yoga schools, it can be you breathe into the chest, into the belly, into the chest, and you exhale again from the belly into the chest as well. So it is a different direction. The flow is still the same. Inhalation, expand, exhalation, draw in, but you can start with the inhale up here, or you can start with the inhale up here. So either the belly rises first, or either the chest rises first. So different yoga schools teach it differently. That's number one. Secondly, this breathing pattern, the full yoga breath, is also taught often with a ujjayi sound. So for those who don't have a yoga practice, that might be new. And the sound is like a ha. You can make it like this. It's very common in hot yoga practices. So a lot of practitioners, when they practice hot yoga, you hear a lot of, yeah, and you can do this ujjayi sound also with the mouth closed. So if the mouth is closed, you can still do a ha sound, and it sounds like that. It's like you tightening a little bit your throat, and it's very common in yoga practices. And what I wrote down to here is that the complete yoga breath, which is when it's accompanied by a audible sound like the ha, which I said, is a very common form in practice in yoga classes. This practice is actually demonstrates another dysfunctional breathing, because it overutilizes the accessory muscles again from the chest. Even though when we start breathing from the belly, it actually activates these muscles. So it's actually healthier to do it this way around than what we did from the top to the bottom. But nevertheless, it is still considered using too much of the chest muscles. And these muscles are all accessory muscles. They are not breathing muscles. They just get recruited because our body needs help to get the air in and out. So we start recruiting other muscles. The main and only breathing muscle which should be used is here. Yeah. So yeah, so that was the whole yoga breath, so that you understand. And it's yeah, it's a breath practice. You can make it healthier, but in general, it's also considered a dysfunctional breathing pattern. Then we went to subtle breathing. That was the breath practice where you were breathing in the diaphragmatic area, which is good. We want to breathe in here. But then we were reducing the breath on the in and especially the out. So it might feel very restrictive, and sometimes also a little bit claustrophobic to some of us. But that actually is a functional breathing pattern. And this is why, because there is something in us, like there's something which is like a thermostat in our body. It's called the medulla. And the medulla is helping to balance all the functions in our body. And it helps us like a thermostat to shift us either to fight or flight, or rest and digest. So sometimes when we had a breathing pattern for a long time, which is not functional, which actually kept us all the time in fight and flight, this thermostat is kind of set to bring us all the time to fight or flight. But you can change the thermostat. It takes a while. It takes really a long time. And you can change the thermostat so that it goes more into rest and digest by doing specific pranayama practices. So subtle breathing is not a 24/7 tool, but used as a pranayama practice, as a reduced breathing tool, it helps to set the medulla into a new shape, into a better shape, so that you get out of fight and flight and go more towards the relaxed rest and digest. So it's a very very healthy breathing tool. It feels weird in the beginning for many people because you're reducing the breath. But it's a great tool to set the set point of the modula so that we can actually correct things. And that was about subtle breathing, what I have to share. And the last one was core breathing, where we were activating our core muscles. And this breathing practice is very functional. It's a functional breathing pattern, and it actually builds building blocks to develop functional breathing as a foundation for general, I like all healthy biomechanical movements in our body, and also for all pranayama practices. And core breathing involves engaging the deep core muscles, including the diaphragm, the transverse abdominals, the obliques. So basically, if you breathe that way, and it's also not a breathing practice to do 24/7, but we train the muscles in that way. So if you start recruiting the muscles for the exhalation to help you to get the air out, you're recruiting them to help the diaphragm to move properly. And not only that you help yourself in terms of breathing, that your breathing actually becomes more functional, you're actually training your muscles with it. And after a while, like with a normal breathing pattern, those muscles should kick in anyway automatically, not as strong as we were practicing it at the core breathing practice, but they will move in the same manner, right? So if you want to strengthen, if you notice today that that maybe you're a chest breather or a belly breather, then to do core breathing practice is very helpful, because you can kind of create like an imprint for your muscles to do this movement. And each time when you feel, for example, anxiety, or you're a little bit stressed out, like check in, where are you breathing? Are you breathing into your chest? Bring it down into your diaphragm, and then see if you can engage your muscles for a couple of rounds and get the breath a little bit more subtle. So so you can create a new imprint and calm yourself down. All right, that's all my notes to the different breathing patterns. I have some more for later if you want to know a little bit more about functional breathing. But now I'm very curious about what you noticed. If anybody feels like sharing, just unmute yourself and let me know what you noticed. Like, let me know if you have a question, and if I can't answer it, I can always forward it to my mentor or directly to my teacher, Robin Rothenberg, who is like a specialist. So, but I will do, of course, my best to answer already today if I can. Yeah, share with me if you feel like. I know it's a little bit like, maybe like I can give you some question. Anyone, what did you notice? What did you recognize? Did you recognize maybe that you have a certain breath pattern which felt like very familiar or very not familiar? Like, did you learn something
I'm
about
happy
yourself?
to share,
Thank
Gita.
you,
I almost
Tina.
called you Advita. Um, I know, so I think I'm a belly breather. And it was interesting to hear your information about the different breathing afterwards, because I found the subtle breathing really challenging, but like this desire to want to do it. Like I was like, oh, this feels like it could be good, but it's really hard. So that happened. And then the core breathing, I was a little confused, and I wanted to ask a question around like how much we were allowed to move our bodies. Like, should we tilt our pelvic bone as we were trying to do it? Because I thought I heard you say like not to move the shoulders, and like I couldn't I couldn't isolate those movements without actually tilting my pelvic bone and like curving my shoulders in. So was the point to not do that, is my question.
Yes, it's a great question. So what happens sometimes that we notice that our muscles sometimes can't do the motion without recruiting other places. And it's a great starting point to notice that. In my education, I learned there's a practice which is called undulations. Undulations are like movements, like very, very small movements where we kind of loosening, because sometimes everything is so tight and the fascia is just pulling everything together, so that when we want to recruit some muscles, everything suddenly like wants to help, like the pelvis rocks, the shoulders gets tight, everything gets tight. And yes, eventually we want to just let the movement happen here. Sometimes it's a structural thing, right? When we have scoliosis, like a spine which is a little bit out of alignment, or we have a very strong arch in our lower back, then it's very hard to recruit the lower stomach muscles. So sometimes we need to tilt the pelvis. And in the beginning, it's definitely okay. Eventually, when the muscles can hold it and the flexibility is there, because it's a combination of flexibility and strength, then you will notice maybe after a year or maybe earlier that you don't need to tilt the pelvis anymore. And for the top layers, for the shoulders and neck, when you feel that you're recruiting those areas, there are certain tools which are very easy. And when you do them, like in between, you can relax those muscles and free up actually your shoulder girdle and free up your neck. Because the problem happens because most of us have a text neck already, right? We always go a little bit like this because we're looking down on our phones, or our spine has maybe a little bit, the curves are a little bit out of the regular range, so it pushes our upper back out and dips us down, or the vice versa, it pushes us away, and that can also create strain and let the accessory muscles get recruited much easier. But it's the starting point is just what you're saying right now. This is amazing because this is a starting point. You noticed something about your breathing, and that is great because that can lead you to further exploration. And that was the class was all about, that we notice certain things about our breathing.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dina.
just quickly, I wonder if the last breathing, was that the core breathing, if
Yeah.
it might be easier sitting up, because it just feels like all the gravity is down when you're lying down. So maybe sitting up, it might be easier to kind of
Yes.
control those muscles.
Yes, it absolutely. For some people, it might be sitting easier, and for some, it might be lying easier. So you can explore with that. When you feel that you can activate your core easier and sitting without using the top part or without moving your pelvis, then absolutely practice it that way. Anybody else?
I was recruiting my neck muscles for all of them.
Great observation.
But
Very
it felt
great.
like I was working hard.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And that might be because it was the first time you brought attention to it. You might, I don't know what you did today. You might have, like it's sometimes hard, like suddenly, like, okay, there's like a breath practice now. Let's lie on the floor and be relaxed, and we are not relaxed. So sometimes it's that, and sometimes it's really something like, oh, I'm actually recruiting all the time muscles which are not breathing muscles. And that I mean, just saying, like I had a lot of breathing pattern dysfunctions, which I discovered in my education through different things. Yeah. I mean, and I had anxiety issues. Yeah.
Mm.
And I had also mood dips, like strong mood dips, like, and I was able, like, when I started finding my way back to functional breath and eliminating all of my dysfunctional breathing patterns, my stabilization of my mood and my energy level, it's just like a different person, really. Yeah. So it is a great starting point, really. Like that was for me too. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm using my neck all the time. It's like, now no wonder I'm always feeling tight here. I need massages. Yeah. Thank you. Great observation.
I have a question.
Yes. Hi, Aisha.
Hi. In the first breathing, the chest breathing, I wasn't able to do that at all. Like my
Great.
chest doesn't move.
Yes, I know. Yeah, that's well, it's actually not a good not a bad thing, you know, because you might be very much a diaphragmatic or belly breather, you know. And when I have to switch to chest breathing, and I was a chest breather, I was a paradoxical breather, and I was stopping my breath during the day. When I was focusing on something, I could hold my breath for like, I don't know, like a minute or something without noticing it. So when I now try to go back to chest breathing, it takes me a moment that I can actually move my chest. So if somebody is a belly or a diaphragmatic breather to start with, it's hard to switch. But were you able to breathe into your chest in the yoga breath where we were doing both belly and chest?
Not at all.
Not at all,
My
only
chest.
belly, only
Mhm.
belly. Okay, it's a good question. I will ask my mentor or teacher about that too. And did you feel that you were using in any breath practice your neck or chest area here? Did you feel any involvement of that?
No, but my pubic bone also went up in the breathing where we
Engage the
engaged.
core. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. That could be a structural thing, you know, like that you need to recruit that in order to get the lowest abdominal muscles to fire up for you, which is not a bad thing, you know, like it's just eventually it's, you know, like eventually, like when you practice maybe sometimes pranayama with that engagement from the pubic bone up, notice maybe that after a couple of weeks, months, or a while, maybe you will not need to move those pelvic bones anymore. Like you can experiment with that, but it's common in the beginning to do that.
I
Yeah.
will. Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Anybody else? I see Tammy here. 1 second. She wrote a question. How often do you practice to calm you down? That depends. That depends, you know, it depends in the sense if you want to change something, you have to do it regularly, like in everything else. Like if it's um, you know, balancing body weight, body strength, or breathing, we need to do something regularly in order to change. But sometimes we don't have the time because there are children, there's work and everything. So I would say anytime you have even like 2 minutes, already like for 2 minutes to just bring attention to the hands on the body and just bringing the breathing down here is already a good thing. And then when you're already here and then you notice, okay, I'm not using anything on top, you can do it in the office or even sitting in the subway. Then seeing, can I maybe calm down my breath? Can I make make it really subtle? So already like sitting somewhere and waiting for a doctor's visit or waiting in the subway for the next stop, can I just reduce my breath a little bit and bring it down diaphragmatically? That's already a breathing practice. So sometimes only like 2-3 minutes, anytime you notice. And if you have more time, then you make it an official appointment and say, like, okay, now I'm sitting down and I'm gonna make 5 minutes of subtle breathing or 5 minutes of core breathing, you know. But if we don't have that, then you start at any time where you're sitting, where you're not having to talk to anybody, which is mostly when we're waiting for something or when we are maybe commuting and are alone. So that's always a good time to practice. Yeah. Any other question? Advita, you wrote down belly or rib breathing. Do you want to say something to it so that I
noticed some things with the rib breath, the diaphragmatic breathing.
Yeah.
Instead of going sideways, it goes forward.
Okay, that's a great observation. That's very common as well. So when we have So this is the rib cage here. If we have a structural or postural situation going on, often or all the time, which means either our rib cage is pushing outwards and it's always like forward. It's for people, very common for people who have, I can't do it like right now, like a very strong arch, and then the rib cage pushes out. That is one. Or when we slouching and the rib cage is pushed in, then those muscles here, which are around the rib cage, don't have the full capacity and sometimes are very weak. And then when they're weak, they don't move anymore how they're supposed to move, right? This way. And then they're kind of lying there passively. And then something else has to take over, and that's more down here. Then the belly takes over and it starts moving front and this way. So these are like slack, like my t-shirt here right now, because of a rib cage which either is always collapsed or often collapsed, or a rib cage which is going into the opposite direction, because then those muscles get kind of stretched out. So they are also loose. So here they're loose and here they are stretched out and are also loose. So it's the rib cage position. And then when it could be the rib cage position, there might be other reasons as well for that. And then the belly takes over, and then you feel mostly the movement forward and inward. Yeah, and then it's belly breathing. And then what also happens, if these ones kind of lose their job because of the rib cage position, then the whole fascia also starts like being like a chewing gum on top of it. So that was with me the case. So when I started like working with a breath therapist in the pandemic, actually, I was in pain here after a while because I had to stretch them again. They were like so glued, they were like not working properly. So in the beginning, I felt really sore here in this area when I started like moving this way and like remind myself. And yeah, so that is my take on that.
Thank you, Mommy.
You're welcome. Does anybody else has a question or observation? Otherwise, I can also read you a little bit something which I wrote down, just for you to have more information to maybe let you observe more your own breath and practice. So most of us, not all, but most of us, especially people who are maybe not having like a yoga or meditation practice regularly, are unaware of how we breathe on a daily basis. We may have irregular breaths. We may have sighs or gasp often, or we find ourselves with prolonged inhale or exhalation. So what I said before, there's something like sleep apnea at night, but we can also have something like that at daytime. That means that we kind of take a breath in and then we holding the breath, and then we like say like we writing something or whatever. We get so engrossed in it that we don't notice that we actually not breathing. Bye, Tammy. So that is also actually a breathing disorder, which needs to be kind of observed and find out. So I had the tendency too. So I was a chest breather, a paradoxical breather, and I had those apnea phases during the day as well. So I had to really like clear out a lot of breathing patterns, and it can happen through different things. So I think my paradoxical breathing pattern developed because of some childhood trauma, plus through my Pilates practice. I don't do think, because we're pulling so much the stomach in our Pilates practice, and if you don't learn properly the breathing, then I started like, like while exercising, I started to holding my belly in all the time, and I was barely like breathing just to hold the muscles tight. So you can also develop a paradoxical breathing pattern by using too much your abdominal muscles and holding them all the time tight on an inhalation and an exhalation. So it's not only trauma, but it could be also through exercising. And yes, and then sometimes through posture, or like I had an accident, so I had to sleep on my back for a long time, and then I became a mouth breather because my mouth was falling open. And when the mouth falls open during sleeping, you sleep basically 6-7 hours while breathing through your mouth, and that can that doesn't recruit your diaphragmatic muscles, and then you become suddenly like a chest or a belly breather, you know, and it's like a chain reaction. It can have different things. So conditions like anxiety, back pain, fatigue, inflammatory issues like migraines or irritable bowel syndrome can all be signs of dysfunctional breathing, which often involve low levels of hyperventilation. In fact, hyperventilation during the days is also linked to snoring and sleep apnea. If you're dealing with chronic stress or pain, it's likely that you have an elevated respiratory rate. Respiratory rate means how many breaths a minute you take. So there's a ideal. So if you breathe above that ideal, then that is considered hyperventilation. It could be very low hyperventilation, but some people have it very strongly so that they have too many breaths per minute. And let's see. Intensively, hyperventilation isn't just an adult issue. Children who hyperventilate often show symptoms like asthma, behavior problems, and sleep disturbances, and chronic respiratory infections. Those are all signs of dysfunctional breathing patterns. And if they're left unchecked, they disrupt the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in our body, affecting both physical and mental health on the long run. So it is really, really essential to become a functional breather to ensure functionality, because then all those chemical processes in our body are also in balance and they keep us healthy. So we can really throw our mental and physical health off when we are dysfunctional breathers. And yes, and I had to feel it on my own body, and it was really very enlightening. And here are also some kind of myths. So you might be thinking, is like, how can I, you know, so it's essential to breathe functionally, ensuring that we absorb and process enough oxygen to support our vital psychological processes. You might be thinking, isn't it simple? Just take bigger breaths. But here's the surprising truth: bigger breathing can actually deoxygenate us. Because on a cellular level, oxygenation works best when our breaths are gentle and regulated, matching our metabolic needs. So when we run, obviously we need to breathe more, but then when we're sitting and just reading and then we breathe through our mouth, then this is like too much. So it's kind of doesn't match our metabolic needs in this moment. And when we do during a yoga practice, Ujjayi breath all the time through 1 hour, 1.5 hours, this is also not meeting the metabolic needs then in that moment. And another myth is like this: take a deep breath in. And then what does it actually mean to take a deep breath in? So most people, and it's also taught by doctors and nurses, and it doesn't mean that it's always bad to breathe into the chest. When we're running and go for a jog, you're going to breathe into the chest, and it's okay. And it's also okay to breathe through the mouth when you having like a run, but it's not recommended to do it all day long or like 8 hours when you're sleeping. So a deep breath actually means that we're breathing deep, which means deep down. Yeah. So it doesn't mean deep breathing is that we're inflating our chest and belly and that makes it deep. Deep means actually that we're breathing down here, because here's also our lungs. And this is where the gas exchange is happening. So when we're breathing up here, we're not reaching actually the level where the gas exchange is happening, and we're not moving our breathing muscles here, and the diaphragm cannot move properly, and then the exchange between all the molecules is not guaranteed. So that's why actually deep breathing means diaphragmatic breathing, that we breathe diaphragmatically. And so functional breathing is breathing in and out through the nose, especially when we are not on a run or we kind of running away from some danger. You know, obviously if somebody's running behind us or we need to fight, we need to breathe through our mouth, and we need also to be in our sympathetic nervous system so that we are able to fight, because if we are in a relaxed system in that moment, then we can't really fight. So we need obviously sometimes also to be in our sympathetic nervous system. But that's really like when we really working out hard, when we're running, when we're fighting, then we need that activation. But the problem is if we breathe through our mouth or we breathe too much, then we're activating all the time the sympathetic nervous system, and we're actually only reading a book while we having our activation going. So that's why it's better to let the upper chest accessory muscles to be relaxed and passive, to breathe diaphragmatically through the nose so that the rib cage is flaring out on an in and drawing in on an exhalation. The breath is best to be silent and quiet and flow steady with a rhythm so that we not suddenly make a break and inhaling and holding the breath for like a time or after the exhalation. And there should be always actually natural pause after the exhalation, right? So it's like inhale, exhale, then there's a little pause. That's why it was the 1 second more. And then again, inhale and exhale. If we're pausing after the inhalation for too long times, that's considered like apnea, and it can be during night, but also during the day. It's also very common sometimes. And breathing techniques, pranayama practices do help to balance dysfunctional breathing patterns, but they have to be applied correctly. So we have to know enough about them. And it's not that for one pranayama practice is good for everyone. Yeah. And especially when somebody like me, for example, who had dysfunctional breathing pattern going on, goes to a regular breath practice at the yoga class, it's not going to necessarily benefit me because I already have like dysfunctions going on, and many people have dysfunctions going on. Many people are chest breathers. Then you're putting like a tool on something, on a dysfunction, and it's not going to do anything good for you at the end. So yes, and we can really balance a lot of things out through correct breathing. Our whole autonomic nervous system can run perfectly fine and restore really healthy function in all organs. And even if you have things going on, you can even reverse things like sleep apnea, asthma. I mean, like my teacher, Robin Rothenberg, there's another teacher, Patrick McCowan, he's in Ireland. It's very big on this direction of nose breathing. There was this book here in the States, very popular. It's called Breath, which also shares a lot about breath practices. So there's a lot of out there by now about this, and it's I teach this class, and I also want to teach more in this direction to create kind of awareness that with our breath we can actually help ourselves just by changing our breath pattern to functionality. If we notice that it's dysfunctional, we can actually help ourselves to heal certain situations. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What about tongue placement in the mouth?
Very good question. The tongue should be on the roof of the mouth. Sometimes when we are not a nose breather, then we have the tendency to breathe through our mouth. Even though if somebody would have asked me in the beginning, are you a mouth breather? Before 2020, I would have said, no, I'm not a mouth breather. I'm a nose breather. But I didn't consider the nighttime, and I didn't consider that I'm a teacher and that I'm talking a lot. I'm talking 5-6 hours a day. And when we're talking, we breathe mostly through our mouth, except we talk, make a pause, and then we continue talking. But that is a practice. I mean, most people don't do it that way. Most people talk da 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 da, you know. So yes, I was a mouth breather without knowing. So my tongue was kind of loose, hanging around, and I had to train it. So you can train that if you notice that your tongue, like if you suddenly like say, oh, let's feel where my tongue is. Oh, the tongue is hanging down. Then you know it would be good to practice training that tongue. And it should lie on the top palate, your tongue. It should be like kind of sucked up a little bit. And there's also a tool which I'm using for sleeping. It's called the face former. And with the face former, it actually trains it while you're sleeping, because there's a sucking action going on with the face former when you wear it. And then it trains your tongue to become stronger, because the tongue has muscles too. And you can actually strengthen it. And then it's going to find its position on the top palate. Yeah.
What about when you're singing? When I'm singing, I mean, I don't sing much, but when I do, I notice I'm mouth breathing, which I'm
Yes,
normally not.
yes, yes, yes. Singers. So when people, I mean, you're like, let's say you're a singer, maybe you're not singing so much, but you're singing sometimes, or like another singer, they might sing a lot. And I'm a teacher. I'm not going to change my profession, you know. I have to like, so what we have to do, like while I'm talking, I have to make pauses to and breathe in through the nose. And you, maybe after you sing, it would be good for like 5 minutes to sit down and do subtle breathing through the nose, just to balance it back out. You can balance it out. It's like a thermostat, you know, you just have to balance it. Yeah. Mm.
Was there any significance to the counts, the 3 and 4 counts? And is that like an ideal length of time to breathe in and out? Because I struggled with that. Like I wanted
Yes. You want to have more or less?
more.
More. Yes, absolutely. Like when more is always good, because the lower the respiratory rate is how many breaths a minute I'm taking. So you can set a timer and just like count how many breaths a minute are you taking. As lower the respiratory breath rate, as better. Yeah, like as higher it goes, I mean, as higher than, I mean, lower is just better. So when you make the inhalation and exhalation longer, you will automatically have less breaths, right? So it's good. But some people have even a problem with 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have a lot of students, for example, who breathing like that. They make like this short little mouse breath, and already to extend it for 3 is a challenge for them, to just do like inhale, 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 inhale. So if I would have today say, let's make 4 or 5 seconds, they would have been all the time agitated, you know. So I had to keep it in a way which is not too short, but also not so long that I will lose some people here because they are just not used to breathe slowly and long.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else I can answer or help with? Let me see if I have some questions here in the yes. Okay.
Well, is there maybe any videos that where you can practice together the subtle breathing and the core breathing? Because
Yes.
I think I'm a belly breather and I also don't have a strong core. I mean, when I go to a workout, I engage my core, but it's more like a workout. It's still different.
Yes.
It's not.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm dysfunctional in a couple of things, but I need to learn how to do it the correct way until my body has learned the correct way. So
Yes.
is there any 5-minute videos I can practice it with together? Because I think I'm not engaging my core enough. And when I do the subtle breathing, I feel my belly go up, but I don't feel the rib cage go outside. So, you know, my muscles actually need to learn the right way before I can say I'm doing it the right way.
Yeah. You could try to do the subtle breathing and sitting as well. You know, sometimes it's the
Yeah.
rib cage position and lying, which is like a little bit tricky.
Yeah, okay.
So try it out and see if you manage when you're sitting to get the ribs to move sideways. And it is a practice, right? Sometimes because you don't breathe that way, it's just basically not used. So it's like kind of in a stuck position. But then we just helping, you know, like we helping by doing a practice like 5 minutes, you know.
Well, I need to I'm trying to just visualize it at least. I remember from freediving practice, I was always like filling up the tank in my belly, you know, when I was doing freediving, you fill the belly with air.
Yeah.
And then I feel like everything expanding, but not just the ribs, you know, it's like my belly goes forward. So it's like, like a balloon more.
No, like, it's okay. But if, like I said, with Advita's questions, if this is kind of stuck and not moving how it's supposed to move, then you will feel and notice more activation here.
Yeah, that's
That
what I feel.
Yes, that only means that this got maybe a little bit lazy, right? And it needs our attention. And you can find different positions. So I would start maybe with sitting instead of lying to explore. And there are videos I can look and send them. And if I can't find them, then I can make
I can
one.
look too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just
And
look in.
sometimes it helps like that somebody or yourself, you hold your hands here and then you say actively to yourself, breathe into the hands, but more into the side, like the heel of the hand, right? Yeah, and I can share with you in the beginning, it was not moving. It's like, and then a lot, my shoulders and neck was moving. It takes a moment, and the moment can be weeks, months, a year. It took me really a while to get things moving how they should move. And then I managed to do it in sitting, but as soon as I lie down, and extended my legs like I'm sleeping, for example, then it was going again into my chest, you know. So I had to like really keep like a kind of a diary and remind myself to observe my breath, to really find connections. And then when you find the connections and if you have like questions, then you can always write me and then I can answer or ask somebody if I don't know the answer in my breath education. But I would always first change the position to see if you can maybe do it better in sitting, like what Gina also said, because sometimes our position, structural position, or maybe the bed on which you were lying on or wherever, was maybe not supporting a good stacking of the trunk, you know, and then it was a little bit hard for you to move them as well. Yeah. And about the core muscles, so if the core muscles, I mean, if we are mainly a belly breather, because this is not moving, then the belly will move, of course, more. That means we kind of stretching the belly muscles more. That means that we are weakening our belly muscles. You know, this is like a chain reaction, right? This is not moving, then the front will move more. We stretching something more, then the cloth will get this looser. So yes, it is important to work our core, but it's important to work our core with the breathing. So we, on an exhalation, we firming, we holding, we holding, we holding. On an inhalation, like a sponge, it takes on air. And after a while, then the body will kick in. It's gonna get like, you just like do it enough, you know, for like weeks, months, and then it's gonna kick in for you, you know, it's gonna learn to do that. But if we stay a belly breather, for example, if this doesn't move, then you would have to again and again do like keep a strong core in order to that something gets recruited. Eventually, everybody has to become more movement in the rib cage area in the right way, not only forward, but like also sideways and in the back. So it's the proper rib cage position. And yes, sometimes, like I said, it's maybe easier in sitting or standing than in lying. For me, it was also harder in lying, but with bent legs, it should be actually okay. But maybe for sometimes it's not okay. It's not enough yet. And then
another thing, I do think I'm a nose breather. I think I'm a nose breather, but I don't know. I just know when I'm stressed, my jaw is clenching. Is that a sign that you are maybe a mouth breather?
I mean, yes, the muscle can tighten up, and that could be a sign of mouth breathing, but it doesn't have to, obviously. But I tell you a story from a friend of mine here in New York. She knew for a long time that I do this breath education. I told her already 2020, like, oh my God. And I started taping my mouth at night. In the beginning, now I have like the face former already since years, which I'm using. But anyway, she was not interested. She's a vivid yoga practitioner. She does yoga every day. She knows also pranayama. And then she started experiencing really, really bad sleeping issues. She was waking up at night at 3 o'clock at night. She couldn't fall asleep. Then she fell asleep 2 hours later, and then she had to get up for work, and it was a mess. And in the beginning, she thought it maybe is hormonal because she's coming into menopause. Anyway, she was so desperate that she was willing to give it a try, and she did a test for 1 week, and she glued her mouth, you know, and
With
she
a
was
tape,
convinced,
normal
like with a
tape or
tape,
what?
yes. And she was convinced. She says, Monica, I am a nose breather. I'm 100% a nose breather. And I know because I was convinced that I'm a 100% nose breather. And she says, like, I mean, but she doesn't have a partner. She doesn't have anybody to sleep with her in one room. So she has nobody who can tell her, hey, you're snoring or your mouth is open. You know what I mean? Like you would have to have somebody or like tape yourself at night in order to really make sure. Or like sometimes the watch also can tell you, you know, like if you were snoring, you know, those like those kind of watches do that. But I don't know how accurate that is. So anyway, she did a test because she was really desperate. She slept terribly. So she bought herself a tape. She used it for 1 week. She had she had already a lot of test schedules at doctors. She did like a sleep. She was scheduled for a sleep study. She was wearing like a heart monitor. She like really like she was like because she noticed that her oxygen, no, that her heart rate was really elevated at night and whatever. She did that test for 1 week with the tape, and she could finally sleep through the night. So it was just that, you know, it was that, and she was convinced that she's a nose breather. I'm not saying that you are not a nose breather. I'm just saying that she was convinced.
Well, yeah, that's a good, because that's, I also don't know what I do at night. So you
Yeah,
can't just use a sticky tape. It has to be a special tape or what? Or can I just use from a hardware shop, like a silver tape?
No,
probably
no. It's
toxic.
like it's a paper tape. It's a little paper tape which you get in the pharmacy. I can send a link out to that. And you can buy it actually in every pharmacy. It should be just narrow because when she bought like a wide one, but they're like very narrow and you can put like just like a little. I can actually bring it and show it to you.
You know, I think it's for scars you tape it together.
Exactly.
Maybe it's the same thing.
And she was like really and
cuts.
I mean I used her for like also like an educational project because she was a perfect candidate, just like to try it out. And she says, Monica, I'm so ashamed. Like I have like a sleep study scheduled in 3 days and I'm sleeping like a baby since I started taping my mouth, you know? And yes, it could have been totally something different, but she gave it a try and it works for her. And I met her a month later and she's still fine, you know? So yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Monica.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm gonna take it quickly, like since I have you online, I'm gonna just take the tape. Oh. So that I can show you, because then you know already how to use it. So it could be this width or narrower even. It doesn't have to be so wide. And let me see where the beginning is here. And then you would put some, I don't like the tape anymore personally because I'm very sensitive with my lips and some of those tapes, they have too strong of a glue. And I feel always, I don't know, they don't rip my skin off or anything, but I don't know. But some people, they're totally fine with it. And I found a different tool, so I'm using mostly that. But you'd need only like a small piece. I would always put some lip balm on first, but then you can't put it all around, otherwise that's not gonna stick. And then you would have to pinch your lips like this, inwards. Just like this, or you can just pinch the lips. And if you have a thinner tape, you can also make a cross. But I always pinch the lips inwards a little bit so that it's not directly on the lip, but just a little bit around. And if it works for you and your energy, like if you feel like difference, you might like when you are a mouth breather at night, then you will notice that your energy level will increase and you will feel more rested after the night. And this is the face former. This part lies on the teeth. It's very soft. And you basically can sleep with that. If you're wearing something to protect your teeth for grinding, it can be used together with it. It's no problem. It can be together. Yeah. So this is what I'm doing since 6 years, and it really helped me a lot because it already shifted me towards nose breathing, at least for those 8 hours at night. And during the day, what I try to do every time after teaching for many hours, because I teach back to back a lot of classes. So I talk sometimes for 3, 4, 5 hours straight. Then afterwards, I do a breath practice to reduce my breathing again, to balance it out. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. I'm gonna go. I think it's 2 hours.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Monica. That's a
Monica.
lot of information, but I'm quite confused because I don't know where to start. I'm a chest breather. I breathe quickly. I have similar problems to your story, I think, and I really don't know how to change, where to start. I want to have more oxygen in my body due to my illness, you know about. And so also I sleep with a lot of pillows to breathe, so I'm for sure breathing through my mouth. And I realized that everything I do with my breathing is not correct. So how to start to improve?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I mean, first of all, I think it's amazing that you noticed. I mean, probably you noticed already before, but now maybe you noticed more. And this is like, that was also one of the purpose of this class, so that you just observe, you know, like what do you notice about your breathing? And the starting point is that you notice like, hey, wait a second, I want to change that. So what I would do, I mean, the tape, that was my starting point. It's like taping my mouth at night, because that is just like the lazy version of it. You help yourself at night while you're sleeping, no? So you just glue your mouth or have the face former, and just, at least for those 8 hours, make sure you make sure, okay, it's through the nose. Then since you know that you want to like change something, you would have to establish a routine, a practice, right? So that's the same what I told, I don't remember who I told it, I think Tamara asked the same question. So if you think at this moment, yeah, but I don't have time, you know, I don't have time to, it's like one more additional thing in my schedule. I understand, like sometimes that is just that way. Then at least when you're sitting somewhere and waiting for something, or even when you're cooking, you and nobody's around and you don't talk to somebody, like while you thinking about it, or like you set yourself a timer, a reminder, like, oh, think about the breathing. Then in those 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just like bring your breathing down into your, at least like start with belly breathing, even if this is not flowing yet, at least bring it from here into here. And it might take you months, weeks, until this starts like moving. Then there are certain movement patterns, it's called undulations, where we like freeing up a little bit those muscles. I can show them to you, or I can send you also some videos, and then to help you to, because sometimes everything is got stuck and then it just gets automatically recruited. So we have to first make sure that we get this loosened up. And then you have to use any moment you're just thinking about it, you can use for a practice. It can be just 2 minutes or 5 minutes, maybe once a day. Obviously, as more you, thank you, as more you practicing, as to faster you can establish a change. No, it's the same.
I'm really interested in oxygenating my body. So maybe we can talk later, I mean, over the WhatsApp, whatever, because yeah, I know that oxygenating the body is good for cancer cells.
Yes.
So maybe.
I will stop the recording now.